Okay, hi guys, Claudia Boleyn here. I am going to do the whole video with this on my head because it's Halloween here. I haven't really felt in the Halloweeny spirit with world events as they are. So I'm not really doing anything Halloweeny this year. I spoke about that a bit on the live I did the other day. It doesn't feel appropriate. So it's going to be this hat for me today. And that's it. But I want to keep my channel as a space. I've been trying to figure out how to navigate the ongoing humanitarian crisis, which is a man-made humanitarian crisis. You know, it's a man-made, it's a massacre. It is basically the ethnic cleansing and genocide of a group of people. It's man-made, and it's not people are talking like it's a natural disaster. No, it's not a natural disaster. It is being done actively by other human beings to a group of human beings. So I know a lot of you follow me because I make videos about Meghan and Harry. And more specifically, I mean, I'm not a royalist and I'm not like a fan, if that makes sense, but because I like to follow racism in the media and the way that Meghan and Harry have been used as scapegoats in our media to basically, they're another avenue of racism getting to us, right? So I've said this before. You see it on the news, you see it on TV shows, you see it on social media. Like every headline you walk past in the shops, right? Just a gossip magazine, presenting Meghan as the sort of brown outsider. In she came in and she's dangerous and she's aggressive and she's ruined our institution and she's taken something from us now and we all hate her, and it's all part of the same system. So I've been sitting here like a wally thinking like how I don't feel right making videos about this situation while what's going on in Gaza is happening, because it's really important to keep talking about that. And I'm going to say this now before I forget. Medical aid for Palestinians. The information is in the description box. There is an Oxfam appeal for Gaza. Anything you can donate to that, I'd be so grateful if you could do that as a donation for them. They need all the help they can get. We don't know if that's even going to get in. But there was me sitting there thinking how, it doesn't feel right to make this stuff, you know, when all this is happening. When, of course, it's the perfect... I feel like we understand on this channel, or if you're on this channel, you probably get it as well, that all systems of oppression, racism, like colonialism, imperialism, all these things, like abuse of power, they are all connected. They all run in the same way. So I know you get different movements, which like things will happen slightly differently in terms of history, but they always kind of have the same playbook. So for example, if you see what's happened, if you understand and you're watching what they've done to Meghan Markle, you can then have the ability to understand what they did to Jeremy Corbyn. You can understand what they've done to different minority groups throughout history. The smearing, right? The way they present them as dangerous, less human, and how they do it in ways which are really subtle and can they rely on stereotypes that we already have inbuilt into us, like from the day we're born, like these racial stereotypes, and then they lean on those. They create fear, and there we go, right? So Meghan is the prime example, and that's why I focus on her. And I am, as you know, I'm a lefty. I'm a left-winger. I don't have a political party right now. The Labour Party is dead to me. They are not even supporting a ceasefire. But this is what I thought, why don't we I'm going to talk about these issues as interconnected. So I'm going to do this, and first of all, I'm going to read the statement that Harry and Meghan put out on Archewell about the situation. And again, you probably know my politics already. I don't always agree with Harry and Meghan politically. But what I will always do, is always stand with victims of racism. I will never stop standing up for victims of racism. They are victims of racism. Well, Meghan as racism and Harry's being treated as a race traitor. And their treatment in this country is so integral, I think, to like what the attitudes of anti-blackness and just fear of the other in this country, that it's all connected. I will never ever stop talking about this because it's all connected. But I'm going to tell you now, I think they've got this completely wrong. And I will explain, I will completely explain why. And it is a complex situation, and hopefully I can explain it. And I'm sorry to be explaining something so serious with this silly hat on my head. Okay. So this is what they put out about the situation on Archewell. With heavy hearts, at the Archewell Foundation with Prince Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, we stand against all acts of terrorism and brutality. We are supporting our partners and organisations on the front lines in Israel to provide the urgent aid needed and to help all innocent victims of this unconscionable level of human suffering. Now, what I'm going to say with this is it's not wrong. I'm not saying it's not that it's wrong. Now, at heart, and this is why we need to talk about this, this is clearly a well-intentioned message, and I'm seeing a lot of people saying this, right? They are we want to help, we're sorry about the terror, you know, we stand against terrorism, all this kind of thing. But to be honest, I would expect more from Harry and Meghan, and I'll tell you why I expect more. Because they have been through this system. Now, their statement here only talks about providing support to the organisations in Israel. It doesn't talk about providing Palestine. It doesn't name the Palestinians or anything like that. And to me, this is a statement which is just as useless as the statements like, I've got a spare here, and I don't want to make this too long, but you've got pages and pages and pages of Harry desperately like, okay. So, for example, I'm just picking a random page because I've annotated this. So when Meghan was facing racism from the British press, right? Now, Harry was in a situation in his family where his father and the firm were essentially taking that kind of, don't get involved, both sides, you know, it's all very sad. But they were complicit because they didn't do anything, right? So, in fact, they did a thing where they acted like, they were happy for the press to act like Kate was a victim and Meghan was a villain, right? And then they didn't defend Meghan against lies, essentially. Like, Harry and Meghan know this system. They have lived it. So he talks about how his father told him he was overreacting and told him it's just the way it is. He told him not to read it. He speaks about how appalled he was. He tries to write this bit. I appealed to his self-interest. Doing nothing was a terrible look for the monarchy. People out there have strong feelings about what's happening to her pa. They take it personally. You need to understand that. But he was unmoved. So in Harry, and I truly believe this, I think they're good people. I really, really do. And I think that, I think it's quite complicated. But they're not applying what they've been through to the situation now. And this is why I think it's important to talk about these things in connection, right? So if you think about Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter is standing in support of Palestine and the Palestinian people, because what we've seen in Palestine is well before the attacks of October the 7th, which were scary and horrible. Palestine has been under attack for so many years, right? They've been, like, it's been about 70 years for them. So during that time, like, if we can use, I really hope it's not offensive to use the analogy here. I'm not saying that the ethnic cleansing and genocide of a people is the same as what Meghan experienced, but what I'm saying is the systems of oppression, if we understand them, it really helps because it operates in the same way. So what they have done to the Palestinians is they haven't spoken up for them. They haven't had, like, there's constantly been these blanket statements of, you know, oh, we support everyone there, while Israel is actively hurting. So if we think about the stuff that's coming out recently, which I'll make a video on, which is it's starting to come out now, it seems like, allegedly I'll say, because I haven't read the sources and stuff, that it looks like we're getting more and more evidence that it was from inside William's camp, right, and Charles's camp, that were directly briefing against Meghan. Directly. And the frustration that Harry and Meghan felt was that, but wait, you're playing neutral, but you're not neutral here. You're pretending like you care, but behind the scenes, you're trying to destroy me. And then when I stand up for myself, you're acting like I'm the aggressor. If we can understand that process, which is what looks like has happened in the royal family, and I think it was Byline Times. I read some of it the other day. It didn't surprise me, but I was also, like, so angry about it, because what it looks like has happened, I don't know what they've got on William, but it looks like, in order to protect their precious heir, right, and protect their firm, they threw Harry and Meghan to the wolves, like gleefully. It sounds also like Charles actually thought, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to take away your security and support as a punishment to make you do what I want. Sorry about the sun here. It is the 31st of October. Don't ask me why it's hot and sunny. I have no idea. But anyway, so if we can understand that, this is going to be all over the place, and I'll make more videos on this. I'm going to try, I think I might find some more parts in the book. Give me a second. Right, so we've got the portion of this book here, again, where, so Harry is going crazy here, like, because he's so angry, as he should, at the racism directed at Meghan, which we now realise was probably supported by the firm, and he's seeing this in action. He's seeing that Meghan is being constantly attacked over and over again, but the media never ever supports her. Whenever she speaks up for herself later on, she gets presented as the villain who started everything. And he can see that the system is protecting, and in fact is part of the oppression of Meghan, right? And the hurt, and the fact that she got driven to near suicide and to miscarriage. So we've got this conference that they had, and he says he decides that he's going to go against what the palace says, and he is going to write his statement because it's the right thing to do. The palace is like, oh, we don't get involved, but Harry's like, no, that it's wrong, right? We have to stand against racism. We have to do that. So he reads in the Huffington Post, he read an essay about the inaction of the royal family, and Harry thought, you know what, that is right. He thought, we can't have inaction here. Like, there is racism and we have to do something. We've got some power here. He said he wants a statement. He wanted a strong, precise, angry, honest statement. And he says also that his statement generated a whole new onslaught from his family. Pa and Willie were furious. They gave him an earful. My statement made them look bad, they both said. We then have the section of Meghan, like crying and being, you know, emotionally broken by this and crying to Harry and saying, like, it's not true. Like, why would they say that, Haz? I don't understand. Can they just make stuff up? And Harry telling her that, yeah, they can, and yes, they do. So this onslaught, right, and I'm not saying it's comparable at all to the massacre of Palestinians right now. But what I'm saying is, to make a statement like that from them, right, if you look at what Black Lives Matter has said about this, so Black Lives Matter UK is firmly with the Palestinians, because what we are seeing here, and I know it's difficult in terms of US media and British media, it's not necessarily people's faults, because we are not taught that Palestine is occupied. Like, we are unaware of that stuff, right? We are very much, our media is quite pro-Israel. So the way it got presented to us was that everything was just peaceful and nice, it was a lovely part of the world, and then terrorists broke in and they killed civilians, right? I'm not saying they didn't kill civilians, they did, it was awful. But that's the starting point, right? So everyone's reacting as, how awful, like, it was just so peaceful, and then these terrorists, like, broke in, and just, like, why were they so angry? Like, these evil people. But we know, like, and again, like, if we look at, like, for example, Black history, yeah? We look at that. If you look at how we're still struggling now to have colonialism taught, to have Black history taught, to have the history of slavery and oppression taught. Harry and Meghan are fighting right now to get the very truth of the racism that they faced within the firm against a powerful institution with a lot of propaganda behind it, to get a fair hearing. Now, the Palestinians do not have a fair hearing here. And this is not me saying, of course it's not wrong to have a response and say that what happened to the Israelis was horrific. Of course it's not wrong. It's human. Of course it is. If you hear that a group of people are killed or you know, hurt, that are innocent, anyone with a beating heart is going to think that is horrific. But this is what, right, Harry and Meghan should know, right? They should know in this. And I really, really hope that they learn with this, because they've learned before. Harry's been particularly good with learning, and his progression is pretty good here. These things are all connected. Now, to just say that, you know, you're supporting the front lines in Israel, right, without talking about the occupation, without talking about the massacre in Gaza, the massacre of children in Gaza, is complicity. And it's the very complicity that Meghan and Harry have fought so hard against when it comes to our media and when it comes to our institutions. And again, it ties into, you know, it does tie into Islamophobia. And let's not forget that obviously Harry was in the British Army. He was very distinguished in the British Army. And I've spoken on this channel before. I am not a fan of the armed forces. And I think what happened in Afghanistan and Iraq, I don't like. I've been very, very against that. But I also think genuinely that more people are good. People are good. And I think soldiers, most soldiers, for the most part, are good, brave people. And I genuinely think they want to help. They want to do what's right. And that, the way they're conditioned, right, you're going to find brotherhood. They're often taught that, you know, this is where you're going to find family. They can come from homes which are quite difficult. You're going to be able to travel. And you are going to be heroic, right? You might not have ever felt like that before. You might have felt like nothing, but you can be this hero. And they get taught that, you know, you are doing this to defend people. And they mess up, like, the empathy of these soldiers is skewed in order to be used for war. And let's not pretend that, like, people getting sent into the military, these soldiers who give everything, right, and they do believe in what they're doing, most of them, they are not, A, given the truth about what's going on. They are conditioned to do as they're told. They have a complete trust that they're not being sent to do something bad. And also that they're not being sent to something that's going to hurt them. And they are routinely let down, right? If you look at the veterans we have in the UK, who are, they suffer with PTSD. They have no support when they come home. They come back, they're injured. They are devastated by what's gone on. And these are the people sent in, right? These aren't the civilians in the places they're sent to by our corrupt governments, right? And there's a level of trust in that is betrayed every single time. So, you know, when Harry talks about, he's spoken in his book about his number of people he's killed. And a lot of people were like, you know, oh, you know, he's evil or something for that. And it's like, unless you're anti the military and you understand the military, this is what our military does. I wish people understood this, right? The military trains people. The whole idea of the military is that it trains people, often very good empathetic people who maybe don't have a good home life, or we're taught it's like a cult, right? In this country, and especially the way Harry lived, it was like a cult of the military, right? And that's how you get respect. And this is a boy who grew up as the spare. You're nothing, you know, you're not worth anything. You're second all the time. He's being told life of service, life of service. He's seeing all these people he's told to look up to. They're in the military. So he's thinking, it makes perfect sense. He thinks, right, okay, I'll prove I have some value and I'll join the military. And that can happen in lots of different family systems, and lots of people like that end up in the military. Now, what they do in campaigns like that, so for example, when those soldiers went in to those countries, and we know now that a lot of awful things happened, right? The Middle East was left in chaos. So many civilians died. So many Iraqis died. So many innocent Iraqis died. And so many soldiers died, right? People who, in another life, right, would have sat around a table with each other and got on great. Because essentially these are people whose governments, right, or their leaders have just sold them out. They've sold them complete lies, and they've sold them out. But the way they train them is to think it's us or them, right? And Harry talks about this quite honestly in the book. And no, I don't like it. I find it completely like distasteful. But I remember at the time I was saying I found it very, I was especially angry with all the royalists acting like it made Harry some sort of psychopath. When no, this is what you support. Unless you're someone who speaks against the military, like that is my position, then stop. Like, that's what you ask people to do. You ask any soldier to do that, and then we put our poppies on, and then we cheer these men, right? All these women now, right? We send people out, like, yay, because women can now go and commit war crimes too. That's great. But the way they taught Harry, for example, is they would teach him it's us or them. It was like, okay, so it's almost revenge. Like, a lot of people signed up for these things after 9/11. And again, this is a pattern that we're looking at. Now, the people that signed up, I know, like, some people were just, like, disgusting and genuinely just wanted to take it out on Muslim countries and hated Muslims. But truly, there is a human, like, emotionally speaking, a lot of people were rightly horrified by that. And they felt anger, they felt vengeance, they didn't know what to do with their feelings. We're not, in the West, we're not good with our feelings. We're not good with expressing things. We often act in anger and revenge, and our leaders will use the feelings that they drum up in the people here to get whatever they want done, right? So obviously, like, good people are thinking, wow, that's so horrific. Like, I want to fight against that. I want to do good. I want to fight against evil, against evil. I'm not saying the 9/11 attacks weren't evil, but the idea of, like, good and evil, we're the good team, that's the bad team, and we have to do that. And that's how we live here. And it's the same in the UK, it's the same in the US. That is how we indoctrinate people. And when it comes to Muslim people, we do have this conditioning that we do have, like, it's unavoidable, like, since around that time and before that time, that when Muslim countries, like, are in states like this, right, and when people die there, it's sad, but it's collateral damage and it's the price of war. When we see white people suffering it feels different. For example, like, you know, the rage that people felt at 9/11, which I still have memories of it. I think I might have been about 10 at the time. I vividly remember seeing it on TV, and we had, like, an assembly at school afterwards, and it's never left my mind. Like, it still is quite haunting. It was probably the worst thing I ever saw, I think, when I was a kid. You know, that was just so shocking to understand, especially because the adults around you were scared. There's something very frightening as a child of the adults being frightened by something, because that's scary, that's horrible. That's a genuine, you know, that makes sense. That's a horrible fear, right? But for example, like, we're not seeing and we're not told what is happening in these Middle Eastern countries, like what's happening in Palestine, like where they are being bombed constantly. They are having their version of 9/11 every day, right? If you add that up. And it's the framing, and I'm sorry I'm going all over the place in this, but again, it's the same framing that we're falling into here, which is to good people, I truly believe, right, are rightfully feeling pain because of what happened on October the 7th. But it didn't start on October the 7th, right? The Palestinians have gone through that every day. The Palestinians have gone through that so many days. It is, in fact, one of the first times that they felt a similar thing to what the Palestinians are feeling all the time in Israel. That's not like a good thing, like, oh yay, now they're feeling the pain. You want less people to feel pain, not more. But the reaction of this is that it was already like a peaceful, good time, right? And now the oppressed people, some of those oppressed people have done something terrible. Now it's time to wipe them out, right? And everyone innocent there is just collateral, and it's good versus bad, and we fall back into those anti-Islamic stereotypes, like, oh, they're dangerous. Like, people are frightened of hearing people saying, like, God is great in Arabic. They're scared of that now. It's literally just God is great. Like, if you were to just say that as a Christian, people wouldn't be scared. Like, there is a fear that they plant. There is a fear they plant in Arabs, in Muslim people, and there is a real racism. What we also see in terms of Harry and Meghan is we see that it is possible, it is completely possible, again, sorry about this light, that someone who has been brainwashed into a system can come out of it, right? It is completely possible, but it has to start with honesty, right? And I really, really think we need to look at what's going on in Palestine as, if you're an anti-racist, right, as I feel like we all are here, if you're someone who is following Harry and Meghan's story, unless you're like a troll or a weird person like Angela Levin, you're there because you feel the injustice of the racism. You see the anti-blackness. You see how it's this coordinated media campaign and how it's so difficult to fight. It's so subtle. And you've got institutions denying it's a problem or painting Meghan as the aggressor, right? And we see this in racism across the board. If we connect this to Palestine, right, the situation in Palestine is very similar. It is a situation where European settlers colonised land, right? That's the story. And the story is that the same sort of anti-blackness, it applies, those same arguments are used against the Palestinians, right? They are unable to, that they are like this mass of people that don't matter so much as us, right? That they are uncivilized and that they are dangerous, right? We're taught to be afraid of Islam, like we're taught to be afraid of people of color, right? You see like a black man getting shot by police, and lots of people will sit there and go, well, you know, the police officer, to be honest, the police officer probably was a bit scared. And it's like, scared of what? Like a black man standing there, you know, he was unarmed. Oh, but police officer might have thought he was armed. Well, it was the police officer's job to, like, make sure that, like, to do their job. And to make sure that they, like, I'm going all over the place here. But I feel like this is how I want to address this. And I will make other videos on this, and I'm going to keep Gaza in our minds here. If we understand what the institution of the firm has done to Harry and Meghan, right, and the positioning of that case and that cause, then we, by definition, unless we're hypocrites, must be in support of Free Palestine. Like, it's not hard. Those things connect. If you're against anti-Semitism, if you're against Islamophobia, if you're against anti-black racism, if you're against colonialism, imperialism, genocide, ethnic cleansing, the massacre of innocence, then you have to be, like, it's not hard. You will not be supportive of what the Israeli government's doing, and you will be supportive of Palestine and their rights. That doesn't mean, of course, that you have to support, and I hope no one would support, the attacks on civilians on October the 7th. But just logically speaking, all these things are connected. If you are an anti-racist, right, and you know these systems, you understand these systems and how they work, you understand psychology, you understand how good people are drummed up by false information, by framing which isn't necessarily true, right? By something like, for example, the royals presented the situation with Meghan as everything was peaceful, she was so embraced, and then all of a sudden she's talking and now she's this dangerous person. Same thing in Palestine. It's like there was peace there, everything was lovely, and then this happened, and now the Palestinians have brought it on themselves, and now we're killing countless innocent Palestinian people because of the actions of a small group who themselves probably, like, they came about because they're an oppressed people and they're traumatized people, and some of them have become extremists now because, you know, they're so angry and they're so traumatized and they've now become extremists and they're committing terrible acts. Like, if you take out the context and you start here, it doesn't work. This position is equivalent of starting the Harry and Meghan situation from the Oprah interview and seeing Kate Middleton as the victim, right? And it doesn't mean you have to want anything bad to happen to Kate Middleton, of course, but it's not correct. If you are against racism, right, Black Lives Matter, like, there's a reason why these causes, right, anti-racist causes, are in support of Palestine. And I'm asking you to use that empathy, which people have, and I'm not saying to take that empathy away from the Israelis that got killed and hurt and are still hostages now, right? I'm not saying to take that empathy away, but I'm saying to use that empathy, use it for the Palestinians, use it to understand. If we can understand a system, we get to a resolution. Everything Harry and Meghan have stood for so far has been to try and talk and reach resolution, right? Harry tried this constantly. Meghan tries this constantly. They are genuinely doing great work. You know, I was looking at Archerwell, and let me just see, when I came on the Archerwell site, there was a quote, and I really loved it. Right, shared purpose, global action, leading the way with compassion. Right, each of us can change our communities, all of us can change the world. And they're right. But on this issue, I'm not saying they're necessarily wrong, but I'm saying their silence is complicity, and they know that. Harry especially understands this because he has been so brave in taking up Meghan's cause. And I know it might be difficult and it might be unpopular, but this is hypocritical, and I will say it. And I have a lot of respect for them both, and I will routinely defend them from racist attacks, and I will keep talking, and these videos will continue. I will keep bringing up how they are scapegoating, especially Meghan and those kids, right? And how the racism is growing here because it's all connected. But if you are an anti-racist, then you need to speak, right? You need to speak. You need to educate yourself on what is going on with the Palestinians, because what we're seeing is ethnic cleansing right now. It's the same arguments that have been used against black people for forever, right? It's the same arguments that brown people aren't as valuable, that their suffering we're used to seeing, that they are inherently dangerous, that if we see big groups of brown people dying in disasters or something, it's sad, but it's kind of, well, you know, let's send them some humanitarian aid, we feel a bit sad about it. But if it's white people, then it's like, we're with them and it's vengeance. The feeling is different. Let's not pretend that the reaction is the same. You can't tell me that the reaction of people to the attacks on the Israelis on October the 7th, which sounds scary and horrific, you can't tell me that level of empathy that people have, people are cutting off entirely for the Palestinians. I have seen devastating images of children in Palestine that I will never unsee for the rest of my life. I think probably the worst things I've ever seen coming out of that. I don't know. So yeah, I really feel like, you know, people's statements like, anyway, we're supporting Israel in this situation. It's the equivalent of saying that when... Do you know what? I hope that people understand that you once you step back and you understand systems, apply these things, because that's the point of knowledge. That's the point of learning. If you understand it in a family system, if you understand like racism in the royal family, if you understand how the media works, if you understand how propaganda works, if you understand selective empathy, if you can see across the media here how empathy for Kate Middleton as a white woman is supreme. They put one picture of Kate Middleton looking sad, and the country is like, what's Meghan done to her? You put a picture of Meghan crying, right? Meghan will talk about a miscarriage or being suicidal, and people will see her as an aggressor. They won't extend her the same humanity and the same sympathy. All these statements that celebrities are putting out, right? Well-meaning, they are talking about Israel, but they're not even mentioning the word Palestine. The Palestinians have been under occupation for about 70 years, right? They've gone through attacks like October the 7th, or not exactly the same, but, you know, bombings and assaults, and their children arrested, and Israel still has hostages right now. Israel has Palestinian children hostage too. That doesn't mean it's okay for either side to have hostages. Just let your hostage, both sides, like, switch your hostage, like, they're children. They're children. But there is a huge power imbalance, and there is a huge propaganda war. Now, Israel is exceptionally good. The government of Israel is so good with its propaganda. If you can see how the British media does that with Meghan, you should be able to see how Israel is doing the same thing right now to justify its massacre of the Palestinian people. And remember, this did not start on October the 7th. This has been going for many, many, many years. If you look back to just a few years ago, they have been bombing Gaza. This was before October the 7th. If you understand anti-black racism, if you understand systems of oppression and colonialism, step back. The empathy is not bad. Feeling that pain and that empathy for those Israeli hostages and those attacks is a good human thing. But think deeper, right? Because people use people's humanity. It's what they do to soldiers. They will use your humanity, your pain, your empathy for your fellow human beings, and people in charge will then try and get you to consent to or to agree with great evils being committed. People who commit great evils are rarely, I mean, the leaders, yeah, they're disgusting people. But when people let it happen, I truly believe, right, most people are not bad. It's because they're so conditioned, and the empathy they feel for people they think are more like them. You know, it's like with Kate Middleton, oh, that could be me, that poor girl, that poor, you know, okay, that's good. It's not bad to feel empathy for people. But is your empathy then being used as a weapon against another group? Please think about that, because that's how the media has played this game with Meghan. And they've used existing structures of seeing white women as very vulnerable and presenting people of colour as dangerous radicals, and Black Lives Matter as dangerous, and taking the knee as dangerous, right? And that we're under assault from woke culture. Just think about those things. I will not stop talking about the racist campaign against Meghan Markle, and I won't, because it's so relevant. It's part of where we are now, even in this situation. That idea of the dangerous outsider coming in and there's no hope. Like, people express a feeling like they're made to feel like the royal family's their own family. That Meghan has come in like a dangerous person from outside to destroy that family, who then they're made to feel like is their family. We're conditioned to think the Queen was like our grandmother. This is our happy family here. And the royal family isn't a firm. They're not, you know, part of colonialism and imperialism. No, they're just a nice family. Meghan came in and ruined that. And remember, you feel like that because they're your family. We've conditioned you to think the royals are your family. So what are we going to do to someone who threatens that? And it doesn't matter about evidence, right? It doesn't matter about that, because all that gets put onto Meghan, and that is part of anti-black racism. That is part of how we smear whistleblowers and people who come forward and talk about their mistreatment. That's what I've got to say today. Happy Halloween, if anyone celebrates. Please donate to Gaza. Please, please, please keep them in your prayers, right? And I'll reiterate this. We need a ceasefire. Ceasefire is the very first thing we need. But what we desperately need is, with people with power right now, to really push for that ceasefire. Because we don't want people dying. We don't want the Palestinians dying. We don't want the Israeli hostages dying. The worst thing that could happen is more people dying, and they're dying all the time. In the name of humanity, we need to all stand for that ceasefire. And I know a lot of you guys are from the US and I'm from the UK. And our governments have been so disappointing. And we are going to need people. We are going to need good people. We're going to need celebrities with reach. We need them to push for that ceasefire. Now is the time, right? And we're going to really see which celebrities are complicit. And we're also going to see here, we're going to see some hypocrisy coming out. We really are. If you're someone who's been abused by a system like that, if you understand the intricacies of that system, you have the tools to understand this. And I will be disappointed if you don't try. You know? I don't doubt that a lot of these people are coming from a place of kindness. I absolutely do not doubt that. I don't doubt that at all. People are being shown the atrocities that happened to those Israelis on October the 7th, and people are rightly feeling sick, as they should. But they're not being shown the whole conflict history over all those years and the occupation. They are not understanding those things, and we have a responsibility. We are big world powers in the UK and the US, and our politicians are letting us down. I just think, you know, Harry and Meghan again, like they want global action and shared purpose, right? They want communities to come together. So what's the first step to that? It's asking for a ceasefire. It's wanting that ceasefire, right? It's that human ceasefire. Make sure no more lives are lost, and let's come together and try and sort this out. I know in their lives they've thought before they could work within these systems, and I feel like from the outside I don't know where they're at. We can kind of see how fruitless that was. It was well intentioned. They thought they could work within that family and change it around, but what they actually experienced was every time they tried, they were smeared, they were vilified, and the power just smacked them down. The institution was pretending it was like this representative for Britain, and it was peace and love and neutral and great, but on the inside the mechanism was destroying any good voices and putting out propaganda against them. They've been in that system. They know how that works. Any of you guys that have been in a system like that in a family or something, you will understand how that works. We need people like that who understand to use their words to vocalize this and to look at this situation, right? If we want peace to happen, we need that ceasefire. That ceasefire is going to be the first step. And then we've got to make sure that the Palestinians have their human rights. Very basic stuff, and it is disappointing from a lot of celebrities, like genuinely. Anyway, that's what I am going to say on the issue today. I'll keep making videos. I'm hopefully going to be making more recently. I'm always going to keep Gaza as a main focus here because it is so tied to anti-black racism, and we'll talk about that in another video. But the same arguments that have been used to colonize people of colour in the past, by European powers, settlers, it's the same story playing out. It's the same story playing out. It's just that we live in an age where people are now weaponizing social justice language to cover their crimes. And we have to think with emotion and empathy, and also with like rationality here. We have to think about the people we want to be and the world we want to live in. Be careful how people in power are going to weaponize your empathy, which is a good thing, because that's what they do to soldiers, right? They're trying to do that to all of us. They want to weaponize our empathy. Are people in this country evil and hateful? I don't know. I hope not. We have just seen a massive media campaign. And again, it's exemplified in what's happened to Meghan and Harry. People hate Meghan Markle. And it's not really about who she is. It's because they've been taught that their empathy needs to go to the poor royal family. That is a grandmother. That is Kate, the mother of the nation. These are just good, gentle, soft-spoken people, and she's a threat. People don't care about the reality. They now hate Meghan terribly. And it ties into anti-blackness and all those different things. And anyway, I am going to go now. Thank you so much for watching this. Please donate to medical aid for Palestinians if possible. Please, please, please keep using your voices to talk about what's going on in Palestine, right? First step is the ceasefire. We need that ceasefire, and that's only step one. Okay? In order for everyone in the whole region to be safe, we need that ceasefire. Okay. Thank you for watching. I love you loads, and I'll see you really soon. Bye.